Hey, everybody, I'm so excited to be here with Scarlet Hernandez, powerhouse, awesome energy. Welcome to the Bold Creatives Collective podcast, everybody. We are going to have an awesome conversation today about how we can build community as artists and creatives and like the importance that community actually has. We're not in silos. We got to build community. We got to be in community. And I'm so excited to talk to the master at building community, at least the master here where we are in Philadelphia, of building community in the arts and culture scene. Scarlett, I'm so glad to have you here. Can you give a little bit of an idea to everybody who's listening who you are and what you're about?
Thank you so much, TJ. Yes, who am I? Let's talk about, I'm not even going to give you she was born on a cold and windy day in February. Who I am today is a first generation Dominican woman. I went to school in Philly at University of the Arts, 2012 through 2016.
You art shout out,
You
right?
already know, alumnus. Um, but what really excited me about being at UArts is the physical representation and palpable feeling of the arts here in Philadelphia. So really my start in understanding what community building is was from seeing masters here at work doing it. I mean, we talk about everything from I was the host at Chris's Jazz Bar and the community
Right,
there all the
right.
way to what it was in universities. So when I got the chance to build 7.5 years ago a company named Rec Philly, um, it was a chance to take everything I've loved and I've learned about Philly and do what I can with my minuscule time and space here in the universe. My
Yeah.
background is in broadcast and artist development, artist management. I'm really like your artist whisperer, like Rick Rubin is, oh my God, tens. So I want to understand artists and communities that they serve holistically and with a lot of emotional intelligence to build really strong connections and value. So that's
Yeah.
what I do on my day to day at Rec. Rec is an agency that's powered by the creative community. So when big, companies like Urban Outfitters, Comcast, Temple, and so many others are looking for creatives to fill their positions
Right.
and do storytelling with them. They turn to Rec, and Rec turns to their members, and we book them.
I
So
think that is
on
such
a daily, yeah.
that that's such a great concept, right? I mean, to have uh, a community around you as an artist or a creative be able and have that community be able to turn to you and say, hey, we have this opportunity for you to, get plugged in with, some of the biggest organizations, the biggest institutions, companies, brands out there is huge, right? To try and do that as an individual from the ground up, it's possible, but with a community, with a circle of people, with eyes to the ground. I was gonna say, I just said with ears to the ground, eyes to the sky, like looking out for you and saying, hey, this would be perfect for you. That is huge, right?
Yeah.
In today's creative economy, don't you think?
Period. I mean, we want to get paid to be who we are, and that starts with infrastructure, which is something that Philadelphia to this day is building and is looking to be better at. And resources. It costs money to be an artist. Like you cannot pay for your monitors or the subscription to make your music on
Right.
exposure. So how are we creating accessibility
Yeah.
to the arts, affordability to the arts, and then let's get you paid? Like I didn't even get to mention it, but our biggest, project to date has been with T-Mobile.
Right.
T-Mobile sponsored 32 members for an entire year to
Wow.
just create, and they did storytelling on them. It was on Hulu. And if I could just say the final testimonial that still gives me chills as I think about it, Visionary the Poet, we gave them their first poetry job, so a paid poetry gig. And just a few months ago, they were featured at the Apollo, and we're talking to
That's
Dave and John.
amazing.
And it just goes to show you where if this is like a gym for artists, show up, do the work, you'll be seen, and you'll flourish. Yeah.
Yeah, that that is so important to like keep that in mind, right? That you have to show up, be a part of a community, plug in, contribute, right? And when you do that, stuff comes back to you, right? Opportunities come to
Absolutely.
you. And that is so important. I think artists sometimes think that they're going to be able to, just like do it on their own without relationships,
Mhm.
without having to get out there and network and be a part of something. And I've run into so many people, and trust me, guys, I am an artist as well. So I have been there trying to like push right my way through. And I'm like, why am I hitting so much resistance everywhere
Yeah.
I turn? And it was because I was trying to go at it with my own power.
Mhm.
And when you kind of give in and say, hey, wait a second, I need to do something differently here, and realize that other people are okay to hang around, and other people are okay to collaborate with and interact with, and even like throw some bones to every once in a while. It is so much easier than to have people recognize you.
Absolutely. And there's a lot to unpack with what you just said. I mean, let's first start with the archetype of the lone wolf. The
Right.
lone wolf has a lot of difficulty eating, literally, because it takes a pack to hunt. There
Yes.
is when you think about your pack like your team, right? If you're the artist, you're gonna want to find someone who does graphics better so that you can make your music. Or if you do graphics, meet up with someone who wants that in their videos. We need to learn how to network from side to side and not just up.
Right.
So
That's
when we
huge.
find the
Side to
herd, we
side and not
find,
just up.
yes, no, absolutely not, because that's the most value you get out of, and you get to kind of hold the mastery of your key and what you do is when you build with folks. And our motto here, we literally have it painted above the doors before you walk in, is independent doesn't mean alone, right? It doesn't mean that you have to do everything alone. It's about finding people that do stuff better than you, letting them do it, and letting them be a part of your team.
I love that. I love that. It's this interdependence, right? We are all part of a
And not
family,
codependence.
not codependence. No, 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 not codependence. You're talking to my other side. Join my other podcast that I don't have right now, which is about couples therapy that I do 9 to 5. No, like listen, like it's not codependence, it's interdependence, where we all need one another, but we're also kind of operating within our sphere of excellence, and
The ego is a hoe, and she's a dumb hoe. Like, she really wants the worst for you.
right.
She's the devil on your shoulder. And dropping the ego and coming to play, and I mean that literally, like as
Yeah.
adults coming to play. Like, people are like, oh, I feel like I'm gonna lose. Well, I was like, you can't lose because you're not playing. And this means the game. This means the game of life. This
Right.
means the game of the community. Like, how are you showing up? Are you willing to be vulnerable and a little goofy to meet people that authentically
Yeah,
connect with you? Because if you're not showing up as yourself, how do you expect people to know you? They won't, and they won't be interested.
I love that. Yeah, you have to be willing to be a little bit uncomfortable. I think that that's when we
Yeah.
think about vulnerability, right? The actual idea and concept of vulnerability is not weakness, right? When we're vulnerable, we're not weak, right? When we're vulnerable, we are risking something. We're putting a little bit of ourselves out there into the water of discomfort so that people can actually meet us, right? They can actually meet us. And then hopefully, when they meet us, they're vulnerable in return, right? We're able to meet
Absolutely.
with them. It's not weakness when we do that. It's actually a
No.
sign of strength, right? And humility, even, right? Humility.
Like I said, when you do practice humility, you go, I can't do this well. but because I'm trying to do everything, you're going to do everything half-assed. So
Right.
finding those people within your community that do things well and letting go of the vine, the more you hold on to that vine, the harder it's going to hurt, you know? So when you find the people and you can let go of that vine, you're allowing space for what's important to you, which is the other side of your brain to work.
Yeah, for sure. What do you see as, a person who greets artists at the door basically at rec, and brings them into the pack, so to speak?
Oh my God, there's
What?
there's like five archetypes, right? Because I don't care who you are, you're so unique, whatever. We're all archetypes. There's
Right.
12 of them. Please read into it,
Yep.
take the quiz. It's funny, it's cute. But there's the excitable and nervous, like please take me by the hand and walk me and introduce me to somebody. That's always like a big magic moment. It's just introducing it to somebody.
Right.
There's the people who think that they're walking into a $3 billion recording session and they have their shades on and they don't want to talk to me.
The
Um,
shades, man, the
oh
shades.
yeah, even like the metaphorical shades, you
Right.
know. But then when they need help, they're
They
gonna
come
be
to
like
Scarlet, right?
they need me. So, but I love the way that our community, once you pass through those doors, it's almost like a derobing moment. Like as soon as you pass through those doors, the shades come off. You see
Mm-hmm.
your friend, you say hello because it's a space
Mm-hmm.
to be vulnerable in. Like these recording studios, people talk about their traumas, the best day of their life, their dreams, their hopes. This is not just recording equipment. These are cues. These are
Wow.
confessionals in here, you know? So
Right.
being able to have a community that asks you to derobe and be the best you and bring the people that bring out the best in you
Mhm.
is something very special that I can't take the credit for, but I will take the responsibility for.
Yeah. Yeah. So you have the people that want to just be introduced and plugged in right away. Then you have the people that are wearing their shades, either
Who think
real
they've got it all?
who think they
They're
got it all
ready.
together. Who else do we have walking through the door that you got to
Oh
deal
my
with?
God, we have the excitable parents and the scared like children. And by children, I mean like they're 22, 23, and they're like, Mom. And it's like the mom is like,
Right.
they're so talented, they can sing, they can do this, love
Right.
them. Who else do we have? I mean, we have the helping hand. We
Yeah.
like ENFJ folks will always find other ENFJ folks
Oh my God,
and be
I'm
like,
an ENFJ. Hello.
yeah, can you tell? Yes. Okay. So another thing, take your disc assessment, y'all. Like, know who you are, what you do, how you.
Right.
It'll just make your brain feel a lot big down better. But you always have members of service, and that's actually come in handy because a lot of members have gotten steady like contracting work, even to do check-in, because they're like,
Right.
Scarlett, like, you want to take your lunch break, and I'll just like greet people and be here. Like
Yeah.
people taking responsibility for the space and finding love in that moment of providing service like that.
Mhm.
So those are a few of our archetypes and people that you can definitely expect at RAC.
Yeah. And I think you definitely need to have all of those archetypes to some extent to be able to make a community feel like
Mm-hmm.
full and well-rounded. And each
Mm-hmm.
of those archetypes, when we're thinking about, existence within a community or in a like an artist pack, have their deficits and their weaknesses where the other ones can kind of come along and help them through it. What do you
Yeah.
think from your vantage point is um some of the most effective ways you see other artists coming alongside and empowering the people who need help kind of being
Yeah.
lifted up?
The ones who usually end up being the biggest like mentors or tumblers. I mean, let's talk even about the tumbler effect. So um, usually when you're part of a community, you are almost looked to like the cruise ship party director. Like everybody looks at Scarlet a party, right? But
Right.
with the Tumblr effect, you are creating other Scarlets in the community that people can turn to as pillars.
Yeah.
Even if it's just a question about the space, about how we act in here, about how what we do in here, how we talk. It's incredibly important that we empower those people, and those are usually, excuse me, the most quiet people. I have another archetype is the whisperer. the one who doesn't even make eye contact, wants to walk right by, isn't because they're
Right.
being rude, they just don't know how to say hi. And the day that you say hello and they finally say hi back, and they start walking in and start saying hi to you first, you see what it means to meet someone halfway and
Wow.
meet them right where they are,
Right.
and incite community that way. So if you could just repeat your question, I'm sure I can round it off.
Yeah, no, I was thinking like, what are some ways that you find to be, this is a slightly different version of the question, you know, and I think it builds off of your idea of and your illustration of the Tumblr effect, right? Some of the effective ways that you have found to empower others around you so that they can continue building the community that you've
Absolutely.
established.
Thank you so much. That's where I was going. We give them responsibility. We give them responsibility, both psychologically and physically and of service. So, psychologically, being that when I'm onboarding a member, I ask that their guests bring out the best in them. I say, bring people that, and it's like, it's about what you say and how you say it.
Yeah.
I am very confident in being like, hey, we bring the people that make us feel good in here. We bring the people that bring out the best in us. If you have someone who doesn't do that, do not bring them here because I'm not interested, and nor
Mm,
should you. So giving them that autonomy of what it means to who they bring here and that it matters. Having that effect of your brother's keeper, your sister's keeper, is it's very powerful because now this person represents you in a place where you're your most authentic.
yeah.
And that can be like, oh my God, my two worlds are colliding, but it shouldn't feel like that. You should be bringing them into a world that they're excited to. So that's the psychological one, right? I ask people to bring people that bring the best out of them. Number two is
Huh.
responsibility. If a member is like, I don't see a workshop about songwriting or about film club, let's make one. And you're going to be the person in charge of it. I'm going to give you the studio, every month from 5 to 7, and you can meet and do whatever you want. So
Hmm.
when they go, really? And it's like, yeah. So giving them access to feel like they are responsible instead of just receiving the product, which is the space and the
Right.
community. You see them like stand up straighter, like, hey, like here's how we do that. And that's how we create pillars of folks that people can turn to.
Right. That's super empowering to be able to say no, like you have the keys to like build this
Yeah.
thing, take this
They're
idea
like,
and go
Scarlett,
with
will
it.
you? I was like, no, but you will if you want,
Right.
because you
Wow.
can.
Yeah. Well, what do you think is going on there where they expect or they think that they can't do this stuff on their own?
I think it's the newness of what this space is, and maybe the how youthful a lot of our membership is. This might be the first place that's inviting them to play like that.
Yeah.
I had specifically a member, and I remember this story really fondly. Came in raging that they had to check in, that I was just checking in on them, didn't want to hear it, blah, blah, blah. I kept very, hey, I get it, totally. And then they came out a few minutes later and stood like 10 feet away from me and was like, can I come talk? And I was like, absolutely. And they were like, I spend all day getting dogged from my family at school, like out, in the streets.
Wow. Right.
And you were the first person all day who didn't yell back at me. It was 10 o'clock at night, mind you, you know? And that meant a lot because this became a physical space where they felt like they could
They could let down.
finally let go and let down. And I think it again goes right down to the psychological effects of being in a space like this, and giving yourself permission to be the person that you wish you could be maybe outside of here. So I think that that's a lot of the power of this space and the responsibility of being a community member here.
Right. Right. And I think, they have responsibility then to, create and be authentic, be genuine in their projects, right? Run with it.
Mm-hmm.
Your responsibility that you have is to create this incubator and this space where they can come in off the street or from wherever they're living, right? Maybe with family that are really like, knocking them down, every which way, and say, hey, like,
They
this
don't
is
want to hear about their art. They don't care. They're
right.
not
They don't care. They're
interested.
not
Yeah.
interested, right? Why aren't you doing something else that is more productive or more
Hmm.
lucrative or whatever? Right. And then they come to you, and your responsibility, your purpose in the setting of rec anyway is to say, welcome, right?
Yep.
I care about you, we care about you.
Hmm.
This is your family who wants to see you succeed. And
I
now
want
you
to hear your new single. I want to see
right,
the video you've been working on.
right.
And that invites them to, again, be authentic and meet people that are in the same wavelength as them and who support them. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that is so important, Scarlett. The the warmth and the welcome and the unconditional positive regard, as we say in the psychology world,
I
right?
love it.
Where we accept you unconditionally. You and I both went to the same undergraduate school,
Yeah.
UArts, right? And a lot of the students at UArts are coming from um, backgrounds like the ones that we're talking about, where
Hmm.
they don't. A lot of people do have the support, right, and do have the foundation, right, but a good number of these kids, when they're coming into UArts, don't have that support and that unconditional positive regard, and they're just going in there trying to make it and hoping to make it, and then they're launched back out into the world, right, after they put in their 4 years, or
Yeah.
even during school, right? We're encouraged at UArts to be getting out there and really working and
Absolutely.
like and pushing. They get out there, and they're back in this sea of no support, right? Or seemingly no
Hmm.
support. And I think people like you, who want to empower them and give them the permission to be truly who they are, make their work, make their art, and get it out there in the world, is so, so important
Thank
when
you.
we're coming from a place of just totally like
Scarcity. It's
scarcity.
literally less colorful. And thank you. We love service, so this is how I provide my service. But I actually wanted to ask you, if even if someone couldn't afford to be part of rec or is in a place where there's no community like this, like, what are some ways that you would recommend that folks find their people? Because we talked about the in-person like
Yeah,
effect of having someone like me, but I had to do this during COVID. i was
right.
i was I was your digital community
Right,
person during COVID. Like, there are some people who I did not meet for a year,
right,
because we knew
right.
each other in person. So it's like, what are some of your tips for someone who might not be a part or have something like that to find their people?
That's a really good question, right? Because not everybody is going to necessarily have the ability to join something like rec,
Yep.
right away, or their situation might be different. And so I think what we need to encourage people to do is to really try and set apart or set aside that lone wolf
Mm-hmm.
idea, right? Where you're the only one and you have to do it, all alone. And for people who aren't going to have access to something like rec for one reason or another, or it doesn't really kind of fit what they're doing, getting out there and actually putting yourself in front of people who you would maybe otherwise not associate yourself with
Yeah.
is super important, right? Just because somebody is not a painter like you, or a musician like you, or an actor like you, but they do something that seems to be completely opposite or far from what you do, doesn't mean that you should be avoiding them or keeping
Yeah.
away from them. It actually, I think, means that you should go and actually introduce yourself to them
Yeah.
and say, hey, this is who I am. This is what I do. What is it that you do? Oh, you know what? You are, oh my gosh, what could they be? You know, you are a finance person, right?
Yes.
You're
How do you numbers? I went to art school.
right? You're a finance person, but you're showing an interest in my art. Can you tell me about like what you do? Right. And then from there, who knows what they could offer you, right? They
Yeah.
have skills and
Or the
strengths,
community they might know about.
or the
Yeah.
community that they might know about. I want you to be going to events that are not just, you know, openings. I want you to be going to openings or concerts, right? For sure. But I also want you to be going to different events that invite all different kinds of folks to the party, right? So, types of places that you can get involved in, or groups, young professional groups, right?
Mm,
So if you're a visual artist, um,
the Barnes
the
has a really
Barnes
amazing
has a
one.
really great young professional group. So if we're thinking Philadelphia, y'all, this is where Scarlett and I live. So like Philadelphia comes to our
Mhm.
mind right away, but look around you, right? So in Philly, we have the Barnes Foundation, or we have the Philadelphia Museum of Art, or other organizations like In Liquid Art and Design, all have young professional groups, or
Mhm.
memberships where you can go and meet people of like interests, but of different professions or
Yeah,
expertise. And from there, you build your network outwards. I think that's so important, to go to those types of things instead of
absolutely.
just the usual, right?
Hmm. And that's an amazing tip. And then I also had a question just psychologically, because I think that that's just so important when we're talking about artists.
Sure.
How, when you're feeling alone, do you separate fact from feeling? Like, what are some tips or practices or anything that we can do that when we're in that moment of, I'm alone, I can't do this, like, you're not telling the truth, like,
Yeah.
this is how I feel. Like,
Yeah.
how do you separate that?
Yeah. You know, so we're all made up of parts. There's different parts of us. So there's different versions of us that are
Hmm.
coexisting all of the time. And we are operating at any given time out of, you know, one version or one part or the other. One of those parts that is really um uh, a heavy hitter in a lot of us is that self-protector, that part that says, nope, you know what, don't do that, because that's going to be bad news for you. You're going to fail, you're going to be rejected, you're going to fall flat on your face. And why put yourself in that situation? Stay where you're comfortable, right? Stay where you're comfortable. That's, you know what, not bad advice, right? Anxiety on one hand, anxiety, or that kind of worry, that kind of like protector, is there for a reason, right? But sometimes it gets a little bossy and it gets a little bit like too big for itself. And in those instances when it's getting too big for itself and it's saying, don't risk it, don't go into that unknown space or that questionable space where you don't really know what the outcome is going to be, when it's doing that to you, it's really important to, number one, acknowledge that, you know, yeah, this
Mm-hmm.
is scary, right? This is big. This is different. This is something I haven't done before, right? Acknowledge that. That's important, and honor that. But then say, you know what? I'm still going to take a step in faith, or a step in courage, to put myself out there. And I know that this part of me is here to protect me, but I don't need it to be so loud right now. So I'm going to go ask it to go sit back down in the corner, right?
Yes.
And if I need it, I'm going to call it and it'll come out and it'll, like, you know, firefight for me.
It's
But
like a cat right under the door. It's just like ready to come out.
exactly.
We just gotta shut it.
We got
But
to
the paw's still
shut
coming.
that
The
door,
paw's still
right? We still
coming.
see it. We know you're back there. We know you're
Yeah.
back there, right?
Yeah.
But I'm going to close the door for a little bit and I'm going to venture out. right? And maybe I don't
Absolutely.
venture out all the way into, I'm king of mixing metaphors, so I'm gonna add another metaphor in here. Maybe we're not going to venture all the way out into the water up to our neck, right?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe where we can go is to our waist, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe all that we can do right now is go to our ankles, right? And have the water just be around us and we can kind of feel it and see what the temperature is. But
Yeah.
if that's all we can do, that is awesome. And then we can say, oh my gosh, I did that and I met this person, or I did that and I heard this thing, or I did
Yeah.
that and I got this tip and this information. And now I can take it back and I can do something with it. And then,
And remind yourself of all the good that happened when you just tried, even a tiny
yeah,
bit.
right.
Yeah,
Like
I love that.
I waded into the water and I didn't get eaten by a shark, right?
Yeah.
I waded into the water and I didn't get stung by a jellyfish.
Yeah.
But what I did get was a, if it's not salt water, oh my gosh, this is getting
Yeah.
weird. This is getting weird. What I did get is a drink, right, of water. What I
Yeah.
did get is
Yeah.
refreshment. What I did get is buoying myself up.
Yeah.
And from there, like, I can strengthen myself and I can go back out next time a little bit further. I think
Yeah.
we need to challenge ourselves when we have that thing. If we are only comfortable, if we are doing the same thing and we're only comfortable, we're not feeling a little bit uncomfortable, we're probably not working where we need to be working,
Mm,
right? We need to be
I
a
love
little bit
that.
uncomfortable to grow.
100%. It's not called growing tickles.
Right. Growing
Name
pains.
of the episode. It's not
Yeah.
growing
It's not
tickle.
growing tickles. And you know what? We don't have to go through growing pains on our own either.
Mhm.
We can go through the growing pains with people who are right there with us, who have gone through it just before us, who are coming up behind us, and we can be the ones to kind of guide them, right? If we're doing it alone, it's just that much more painful and that much more hard.
Yeah. I love that. Thank you so much. I just, a lot of our conversation just kind of sparked because everything goes back to our own mentality and how we're taking care of it and how we're being more open about it. Like,
Right.
this week is week 2 on Wellbutrin for me. I was on Lexapro back in like 2015,
Yeah.
and members are like, "How are you?" I was like, "It's great. I took this and this, and this is how I feel." Because I just hope I didn't have that, so
Yeah.
I just hope that my vulnerability and who I am right now is meeting them maybe where they are or where a friend is right now, so that they know that
Right.
it's not something secret or hush.
Right.
Like we sing the blues and we take them too. It's a Fall Out Boy lyric. Everything
Yeah,
goes
yeah,
back
yeah.
to
I
Fall
got
Out
you.
Boy.
I got you. But you know what? Like, we need to be able to like share ourselves, right, in order to really meet other people, right?
Yeah.
If we expect people to show up for us, right, and be real with us, but we're not willing to be real with other people, right? That's not
No,
a recipe for
absolutely.
conversation.
And saying I'm okay, or you know what, today's been hard, and I feel a lot more comfortable doing that now as I'm on this mental health journey. That's going to be for the rest of my life. But I used to be like, oh my god, I'm great, because as a non-male, like, specifically in my case, I was a really good masker.
Yes.
And I wasn't helping anybody when I wasn't even helping myself.
Yeah.
So the unlearning of masking has done wonders, because I'll start having conversations with community members and with communities in whole about, what it means to be mentally healthy, to be your best self, to bring your best people, to make your best art, and how it really unfolds from there. So that's
Right.
really been my journey with just
Yeah.
like authenticity and sharing a lot
Yeah.
often.
Yeah. Well, that's the self-care as a community builder, right?
Yeah,
Taking care of
absolutely.
yourself, understanding what you need, recognizing whether or not you are wearing a mask that you
Mm-hmm.
maybe don't need to be wearing, or understanding why you are wearing that mask, right? A
Absolutely.
lot of the stuff that I was talking about a few minutes ago when you asked me those questions, and some of what you're talking about now, or alluding to anyway, is stuff that we carry along with us from our past experiences, right? Those traumas, those wounds, those situations where we were told that we need to be different or that we can't be ourselves, right? Fully, where we need to put on a mask or in order to survive, in order to be accepted, right? That's not taking care of ourselves, right? Taking care of ourselves is questioning those things, getting help, being vulnerable, right? Asking and being honest when we're not having a good day, right?
And finding different ways to work your brain. You know, when we talk about comfort, sometimes it is about moving to a different room, trying something new. You know, I love what you said about like mixing your disciplinaries and like where you go and who you meet up with. Because whenever I have someone who's a musician, I'm like, book the design studio,
Right.
just paint. You get two canvases, just paint. Like use a different part of your brain that will support you in the skills, dexterity,
Right.
clarity later. So
Right.
I 100%
So
attest to
so
doing
many
that.
things there that I think so many people can take away from this. And this conversation is so important. I'm so glad that you were willing to come on and
Thank you so
chat with
much.
me for a little bit. We're gonna link up Rec Philly and all of that stuff in the show notes, so that people can find you, and find out about this concept of a community that cares for one another and makes really great stuff, and pursues their dreams and passions. So
Yeah.
Scarlett, thanks so much. I really appreciate you being here.
Thank you, TJ. I really appreciate you and the listeners. And be nice to yourself and be nice to others. And that's all I got for y'all.
100%. Thanks everybody for joining us for this conversation on the Bold Creatives Collective podcast. Can't wait to chat with you next time. Until then, I'll see you soon. Bye guys.